Okay. If you have a Gmail, email as a Gmail. Who has Gmail as email? Okay. Jennifer Cosby. I saw you over there, and I'm over here. Okay, I want you to tell me a little bit about yourself, and I'd like you to share why you get into real estate because I think it's special.
My name is Jennifer Cosby. I got in real estate in 2019. I had a HR company before that, but I got into real estate because I had a special needs daughter. I knew my HR company wasn't going to fund her for trust fund fully because she needs 24-hour care. I try not to cry, but when I talk about her, I get all mushy because she loves like Jesus, but she's not able to tell me what's going on. If somebody was to hurt her, she can't say, oh, this person hurt me, or I don't like going there. So anyway, she needs 24-hour care, so that's why I got into real estate, so she can have her best life. I always joke and say, my husband and I are gonna be like one of those apartments, like the income-based apartments, eating our Roman noodles, and she's gonna be on the beach, eating her crab, having a server come over to her, but anyway, I won't talk about that anymore, because I don't want to burst down in tears, but real estate has been a huge blessing for us, and we started in houses, Motorhome Park, and then now in commercial real estate. So we're hoping in the next 5 years we can sleep at night knowing that her trust fund will be fully funded. So, yes. And if anybody knows about nonprofits, please come talk to me because I'm really struggling in that area. We have a nonprofit for her, but I just cannot get it off the ground. So I would appreciate any advice on nonprofits. So, thank you.
Okay, are y'all ready to start back? You ready, Don?
I'm ready. All right, let's go. We're switching gears here. Let's talk about lawsuits. I know that's what you really came to hear. Ooh, let's talk about the threats. And sometimes it's more perceived than it is real, but on the other hand, sometimes it's much more real than we ever know. And this is different than taxes where you can see, you can plan, you can prepare. This is one that kind of comes down, thumps you on the head someday and go, you're being sued. Anyway, so let's talk about it. And any chess players in here? Oh, okay. I'm not. I know the bishop goes diagonal. I know the rook goes up and down. I've played a few games. Well, I think I'm a lot. But here's what little I know about chess. Is that there is no one way to win a chess game. And there's no one way to win legal strategies. We're going to teach legal strategies, and I know that is frustrating for some of you. Just tell me the best way. Well, I don't know. It depends. And I'll tell you what it depends upon, but there are so many factors in creating a good legal structure for you. And so really what we're going to be doing is we're teaching legal strategies because there is not one legal strategy that's going to win every game. Okay, let's talk about sources of lawsuits. The number one source of lawsuits in America is divorce. You don't think of it as a lawsuit, but it is. But there's two really important things you learn about divorce that applies to regular lawsuits. Number one is divorce is not fair. Would you agree? If you've been through a divorce, you know people that have been through a divorce, it rarely is fair, or at least perceived as being fair. And we all know people that got taken to cleaners, and sometimes it was because the other party had the best attorney, or maybe the best records, or they were a better liar, or more manipulative, or maybe they take the kids and use them as pawns, or maybe one party could hold out and didn't need income and the other one did. And so there was a lot of reasons why it wasn't fair. But divorce, as you know, is not always fair. Would you agree with me? If you ever think the lawsuits are about fairness, you're kidding yourself, because it's not. It's about a lot of other things, and it is a game. And if you don't know the game, but divorce is a really good representative. The other important thing you learn about divorce is in 1964, California developed what's called no-fault divorce. Oh, cool, you don't have to show that one party, egregiously offended the other, that they were abusive, that they were, I don't know, whatever, unfaithful. You just have to say whatever you want to call it off. Because divorce is a form of a lawsuit. Now we swept the nation with no-fault lawsuits. Wait a minute, I didn't do anything wrong, but you were being sued. Oh, but you had an employee that did something wrong. Oh, okay, well, you own an asset. I didn't do anything wrong, I just owned the asset, but that's okay, you're gonna get drugged into this. And all the precedent cases that came from no-fault divorces have now filtered into no-fault lawsuits. And lawsuits are generally, a plaintiff's attorney is gonna file a shotgun, and then name anybody that anybody might have to have something to do with this cause of action. And then you have to defend yourself. And it's not about winning and losing, because if you get drugged into this and you have to defend yourself, haven't you already lost? You're paying for an attorney to defend yourself when I didn't do anything wrong, but that's okay. Okay, so divorce is big thing. Employee actions. Do employees do stupid things? Can you be held responsible for this stupid things? Yes, I trained them, I hired them, I had my employee manuals, I did the training, but employees still do stupid things. Okay, one of the biggest ones that I run into all the time is joint ownership. Because most of you have assets in joint ownership. What that means legally is you own 100% of the asset, and whoever you own the asset with owns 100% of the asset. And I know that doesn't add up. If you're an engineer or a mathematician, it doesn't add up. In the eyes of the court, it does. Let me tell you where this comes back to Hansa. Is if I've seen this maybe hundreds of times. I want to help my mom because she's getting elderly, so I'm going to put my name on her bank account to help her pay the bills. I'm going to put my name on her house so that it avoids probate when she dies. It's in joint ownership. There's clear title to the asset when she dies, and I've avoided probate. So the first time I really experienced this, a lady called me from Minnesota. And she's in her 80s, does not understand why the IRS has boarded up her house. I always paid my taxes on time. I haven't done anything wrong, and I can't get into my house. There's an IRS lien, they've seized the home. I says, well, how do you hold title to the property? Well, I put it in joint ownership with my son, so he inherits it. That's what my attorney told me to do. Well, tell me about little Johnny. Oh, Johnny, he's a character. Does he have problems with the IRS? Well, of course he does. So Johnny gets an IRS lien against him, doesn't pay his taxes. They come take mom's home away. Even though he never paid the property taxes, he never picked up his clothes. He didn't do anything. But joint ownership is the financial kiss of death, because they own 100% of the asset in the eyes of the court. It's an indivisible interest. And so one spouse gets sued, you own things in joint ownership, and they're going to come take the asset away because they can. We don't hold assets in joint ownership. We could use a trust, We'll talk about estate planning this afternoon. We could use an LLC, we could use lots of other legal entities, but joint ownership, right down, is a financial kiss of death. We don't own assets in joint ownership. All right, and if you're gonna help your mom use a power of attorney, don't use joint ownership. Have her sign over a power of attorney. That would be a lot better legal tool. Regulatory compliance. Last year, 2013, federal government increased lawsuits against small businesses 284%. The federal government could come against you as well, could they not? Yeah, defend yourself against those lawsuits. Those are fun. And services of an officer of somebody else's corporation. If you can't control it, don't have anything to do with it. But this is an honorary title. We want to be an honorary member of the board. Okay, so one of the very first cases I dealt with in probably 2001 or 2. A big church down in Alabama was being sued. And what had happened is this is like centuries old church. It's a church, but then, people donated, and then they added a elementary school. And then they added another building for the nursery, and they added one for the junior high. And then they added a few hundred acres for a summer camp. And they added multiple entities. They didn't use single-member LLCs inside of their nonprofit, that everything was in the nonprofit. And if you donated over a certain amount, then you got to be a member of a board member. Okay, that's cool. So they've got 87 board members who are on the board of directors of this church. And summer camp, kids are out in the canoe, 3 kids roll over, get caught in the moss, wrongful death. They're suing everything inside of the nonprofit plus individually each member of the board of directors. And they're coming after blood because they can. Don't be an officer of somebody else's. Be an officer of your corporation because you can control it. But somebody else's honorary, I hate those things. And then a lawsuit today for an act 10 years ago, we'll cover insurance in a minute. And you all go, yeah, but I know, but Oklahoma has a statute of limitations. Okay, good. And it's good for 24 months, most of the time. But there's bonus clauses from time of discovery. Okay, so Hunter, I lived in your rental house about 10 years ago, and my kids were little, and they're all lined up, and we'd see this little picture, and we took a picture of them, and after they all developed asthma, I've never really understood why, but we have asthma in every one of the kids. And now I look at this picture again, and I go, oh wait, see on the bottom, on the floorboards here, there's mold up and down the walls, and now I make the connection between mold and asthma. Oh, I've got 12 to 24 months from time of discovery to come back and sue you. Oh, baby. Not from the time of the incident, but from time of discovery. You know these amalgam fillings they put in my mouth when I was 12 years old? That's what's caused all my health problems. I've got 12 to 24 months to come back and sue that dentist. Oh. And then there are some things that do not have a statute of limitations, which would be like chemical spills. Somebody dumps a 55-gallon barrel of oil on your rental property. There is no statute of limitations. The EPA is going to come back to anybody ever on title, and whoever has the deepest pocket is going to get to clean up the oil spill. You know that? There are some things by statute you are going to fix. Mold and mildew is one of them. Chemical spills, lead-based paint is one of them. It's by statute. And what that means, all of us tend to be little armchair little attorneys, and we watch Law and Order and Perry Mason, and we think we understand the legal game, right? And we know that the prosecution or the plaintiff is gonna have a chance to give their argument, and then the defense gets a chance to give their argument, right? When there's statutory liability, there is no time for defense. They prove that there's a chemical spill, no time for defense. Well, I didn't know about it, doesn't matter. I didn't own the property at the time, that doesn't matter. There is no defense. You were on title, you're gonna clean it up. So statutory liability scares me as much as anything, because there are some things, by statute, there's no time for defense. We do not hold properties in your personal name. Not just slap your hand, but slap, no, we don't do that. And if you've done it, let's fix it, but let's not do that anymore. Because the liability is huge, and then is it possible that insurance may not cover you? I'll give you some examples of things that insurance doesn't cover you. Insurance companies have the best paid attorneys anywhere in the world. They do. They've got the tallest buildings. They make more money. And how do they make money? On collecting premiums and denying claims. That's how they do it. Look at your homeowner's policy. Mine is like 24 pages long. There's 3 pages in there buried that says, here's what we will cover. And the rest is exclusions and limitations and I don't know, they use vocabulary that nobody in their right mind would use. And then they define it and you know, that's, are you nuts? Are you expecting your insurance company to always cover you? I want you to have good insurance. I want that to be your first line of defense. But after that, there's a secondary line of defense, and we separate assets and we don't carry them in your own name. Is that fair? Okay. Just owning an asset. And you know, let me talk about an implied officer for a second. Because I had a case, probably about 15 years ago, a dentist in Utah is being sued. He's administered laughing gas, which is normally very safe. He administers laughing gas to a little gal in the chair. She has an allergic reaction and dies in the chair. I didn't see that one coming. And probably 2 years before that, he's concerned about lawsuits. And so he goes to his well-meaning estate planning attorney. His estate planning attorney, and he explains the problem. I'm getting close to retirement. I've acquired some wealth. He's got 10 rental properties, and he's paid for the building, and he's got, you know, dentists have a lot of equipment. You know, he's probably got $500,000 in equipment and invested, and so his home, Oklahoma protects your home. Utah protects the first $30,000 equity in your home. All right, that sucks. So he's concerned about this stuff. So the attorney says, well, why don't you put everything in your wife's name? Well, okay, marriage is stable. Okay, they do. They put everything in the wife's name. The wife that has nothing to do with the dental practice, except she comes in and she pays some of the bills. And then one week prior to this, you know, the wrongful death thing, dentist is up in the mountains with the Boy Scouts. They're hiking in the mountains, they're doing boy things, and wife comes in, she signs 2 checks out of the dental practice. Do employees sign checks? No. Implied officers sign checks. She's not an officer. She can't own the professional corporation. She's not even a dentist. But she drug into this lawsuit because she's an implied officer. Sometimes the way you're signing your document makes a difference. Yes, I've got an LLC. Are you signing it Don Pendleton, manager of the LLC, or are you signing it in your name? If you're a president of a corporation, are you signing it as a president, or are you signing it in your personally? How you sign your documents will determine the liability protection that you have in a lot of cases. And so if you're not understanding this, if you're going to play the game of having legal entities, you have to learn to play it well, or you have no protection. If you're not, if you have a corporation, it requires that you have minutes and meetings and resolutions. If you're not going to do that, don't do it. Don't do a corporation, because they're going to pierce that and they're going to come after you personally. So, as much as I love legal structures, I love legal entities, my caution is take the time to learn to do it well. And that's really what we do more than anything else, is teach you basic principles that they didn't teach us in. Look, let me get up on my little soapbox here and tell you that I think in America we do such a piss poor job teaching financial education. Can I just tell you that? You graduate from high school and not know how to balance a checkbook. And you don't know the difference between an IRA and a traditional and a Roth. We don't teach taxes. Wouldn't it be nice if you graduated from college and you had to learn to file a 1040 or a promissory note or I don't know, something, an earnest money agreement? But we send kids out in the world and they don't know the difference between simple interest and compound interest. So they buy the biggest, baddest truck that they can get at an 18% interest rate. We're doing our kids a disservice. Okay, enough of that. Okay, I'm sorry. For real estate owners, if you own real estate, 64% of your lawsuits are going to come right there from not keeping your tenants safe. If there's a lawsuit on the premises, if there's a sexual assault, who are they going to sue? The 64-year-old guy who's still living in his basement with his mom because he can't keep a job at 7-Eleven, who assaulted the poor little gal in Europe? Or are they going to come after you, the apartment owner? You are the deep pocket in that relationship, are you not? I don't care how much equity you have. I don't care how many properties you have. You have an asset they don't have. They've never been able to come up with the money for a down payment on it. You own the house, you're the deep pocket, and so they're going to subpoena everything about you. They're going to look at the door locks and the window locks and who you let into the properties. They're going to look at the lighting in the parking lot. They're going to look at the neighbors. They're going to look at your records. They're going to look at anything and everything. Did you ever commingle funds? Did you pay groceries out of the business account? They're going to look at anything and everything to come after you because you're the deep pocket. And insurance might cover you, and I hope that they do. But if not, if you're holding properties in your own name, you're playing a dangerous game. That I see things from a different point of view. I've run a hotline for 25 years, and I hear the worst stories anybody could ever imagine. Do you remember like 4 years ago when a helicopter went down in the East River in Manhattan, and they were taking a tour. They had 5 people in the back, and they were all bolted in like a roller coaster harness. The pilot got out, but the 4 passengers didn't. I had 3 calls from helicopter companies that day saying, what do I do to protect my assets? I hear the worst of the worst. And that's the business that I am. And I understand that I'm a little bit tainted. And some of you have owned hundreds of properties and never had a lawsuit. I hear it from the other side. Somebody that moves to Texas has dumped all of their money into a 16-unit apartment complex, owns it for 3 weeks, and gets their first mold and mildew lawsuit. These guys want blood. I know that my perspective is tainted, and I'm going to be a little bit more tipped to protecting you than not. But I hope you understand that that's my perspective. That's where I'm coming from. Enough of this. We've talked about statutory liability and implied officers and all that. My homeowner insurance, and most of yours, will not cover business activities. If you're running a little daycare center in your home while your kids are growing up, and there's a slip and fall, your homeowner insurance isn't gonna cover that. If you have any business activities, your homeowners. Now, what you could do is list that business, tell your insurance agent to list them as an additionally insured. Take the LLC's name, the corporation's name, list that as an additionally insured, won't cost you any more, but now business activities are covered. Sometimes it's simple little things that we can do. Short-term rentals, if you're renting out your house, that's not gonna be covered. You're doing Airbnb, we're gonna move out of the house for a week and rent it out to someone, that's gonna be covered. Expensive items, usually homeowners insurance will cover about $20,000. Well, that may not cover your wedding ring. It won't cover your storage unit. It won't cover earthquakes and those types of things. That's what your insurance won't cover, homeowners. Your liability insurance will generally not cover mold and mildew and lead-based paint, and it won't cover chemical spills. We talked about that. I learned this the hard way with one of the rental properties I had in Indianapolis. We evicted some tenants, they were gone, but it took a lot of rehab. It was gonna take about 4 months to rehab this property. Within that 4 months, somebody came in and swiped our air conditioning unit. Took it off, they stole it. We filed a complaint with our insurance company. They said, oh, I'm sorry, it's been vacant more than 30 days, we don't cover anything. I'm sorry. Yep. Sometimes you think that you're covered because you have an umbrella policy. Okay, good. What it does, it wraps your home and auto, and it takes it from whatever your state limits. Now I got $1 million in coverage. Okay, that's good. Congratulations, you got $1 million in coverage. But what you don't understand about insurance is this. Adding more depth to your insurance does not increase the breadth of the insurance. If they weren't going to cover it at $30,000, they're sure as heck not going to cover it at $1 million. And umbrella policies only kick in if it was covered by primary. Does that make sense? If something is going to be excluded at the primary level, it is always going to be excluded at the umbrella level. Yes, I've got $1 million in, so I would rather you spend a little bit more money with your insurance agent saying, here's exactly what I'm doing. And let's include, 60-day in case vacancies, and let's include dog bites, and let's include a couple things that aren't going to be covered any other way. And spend a little bit more money covering the breadth and not necessarily the depth. Does that, are we with everybody on that? Okay. That's an important thing I want you to know. Okay. Now, there are 2 definitions before we get into legal structures and I start drawing diagrams and putting boxes and squares and circles. There's 2 definitions I need you to know. And this, I've taught attorneys all over the world that don't understand these 2 concepts. You need to understand this if you're going to understand asset protection. One is corporate veil and one is charging order. They're very, very different, but you need to understand both. Corporate veil, what it does is it protects you from the business. Let's say your business gets sued. What you want is you want a proverbial brick wall there to protect all your personal assets from that lawsuit. So what we want to do is we want to contain, okay, don't take a picture yet. Look, camera's not there, okay. We want to contain all that risk inside of the business, carry good insurance, keep most of the assets out. Yeah, we want to keep it lean and mean, run the business. But we want to contain the business and not let them come after the officers and directors. That's you, right? Okay. The goal is to attract all the risk, contain all the risk, shield the officers and directors. There's two different types of business structures that allow you to do that, and that is corporations and limited liability companies. Now, it doesn't matter if it's a multi-member or a single member, it doesn't matter if it's manager-managed, doesn't matter if the LLC is taxed as a C Corp, S Corp, doesn't matter. Corporations and LLCs have the ability to contain risk and create a corporate veil. But 67% of your LLCs and corporations can be pierced. How do I know that? Study by Cornell University says, hey, you're screwing it up. You're not keeping your minutes, meetings, you're not playing the game. If you're going to play the game, you need to play the game. If a corporation requires you to have an annual meeting, you have an annual meeting. If it requires a separate tax return, you do a separate tax return. Whatever you've elected to do, you have to play the game, or you won't have a corporate veil. There will be no shield. So when we teach the 3-day summit, we talk about here's what you have to do. Sometimes you might have to keep a stock ledger or issue stock. You're always going to, for every business, with very few exceptions, you're going to need a separate bank account and a separate set of books. And sometimes you need to have estimated payments. Sometimes capitalization is important. If you take out all the money out of your corporation and not leave money in for the creditors, they have a claim against you and they can probably come pierce the veil, right? You're undercapitalized. You didn't leave enough money in there. Estimated tax payments and tax returns and advertising. I've got a business. It's set up, but is it really a hobby? Or do businesses advertise if they want business? Yeah, but you're not doing that. You're a consultant and you're really just going to Hawaii, my wife, and she's really taking tax things that really she shouldn't take. She's not advertising, she's not, luckily she is, but you see that sometimes all of these things add up. And it's not any one thing that the court's going to look at and say, you didn't do this. But it's the propensity of it, it's the total, what they look at this and go, how many items are on there? Let's say there's 15 or 16 and, you're doing 4 of them. You don't have a business. There is no corporate veil. You see what we're doing? Okay. And we're going to spend a lot of time. Now that's corporate veil. If the lawsuit commences, we want to contain the risk. Corporations, LLCs can contain risk. Now, separate definition, totally different, and this is charging order. Charging order protects the assets from you. Has there ever been a time in your life you sat back and you went, yeah, I probably could have done that one better? Story of 2 guys in Minnesota that decided to go duck hunting in the middle of winter. So they go duck hunting. Before they go duck hunting, they have to have the new truck. Okay, we're going duck hunting. And they have to have shotguns and shells and dog food for the dog, and at least 2 or 3 cases of beer, and all the shotgun shells and little wacky things, and the vest. You have to have the vest. And so they do all their shopping and they go duck hunting, and they decided to go. They take their truck, load it all up, head off across one of the Great Lakes. I don't know which one's close to Minnesota, whatever. And the ice is safe, and they pass all the little ice fishermen who have their little tents set up and all that, and here they are, they're running across the ice, and they get to a secure place. And they figure this could be the great place to do duck hunting. They know that they have to create a hole in the ice for the ducks to land, right? And they know the little ice auger isn't going to be big enough, so they brought a stick of dynamite with them. Their idea is to blow up, the ice, and then set up their decoys and sit back and hide. I'm not sure where, but okay, and then blast the little ducks when they come. That's their idea. So they get everything all set up. They light the dynamite. They walk far, way away from the truck. They throw it way away from the truck, because this is a brand new, $70,000 truck, and it's a nice truck. And, okay, so they throw the dynamite. Remember I mentioned something about a dog? Retriever, trying to retrieve things that are thrown from the owner's hand. So he's there to pick it up, and he's bringing it back, full doggy speed. And he's being loyal, he's bringing it back to the owner. They don't know what to do. They yell, they scream, they yell, what do we do? Well, that encourages the dog on, because he doesn't understand English. Okay, so they take one of the shotguns, it's bird shot, so they shoot the dog. He's low, he's okay, but he's loyal, and he keeps coming. They shoot the dog again, so now he's really confused, and he runs for cover. Under the truck, yeah. Gets under the truck, burns himself on the tailpipe, was really yipping off the other direction, but drops the dynamite, kaboom, and then ends up in the Great Lake. Has there ever been a time when you sat back and you went, yeah, I could have thought that one out better? Charging order protects the assets from you. Very different direction. So you get sued. You're personally named. Now, what we want is a proverbial brick wall to protect the assets from you. You got named, whether you did something wrong or whether you were accused of doing something, it doesn't matter, you're in the middle of a lawsuit. We want to protect the assets, but we also want to protect your business interests. You own 50% of this LLC, you own 100% of this corporation. We want to protect the business assets from you. So the goal here, protect your personal assets, protect your business ownership interests. There's two different types of legal entities that can do that. That is multi-member LLCs and family limited partnerships. Now, we don't talk a lot about family limited partnerships because all the case law went into multi-member LLCs. And let me explain multi-member LLCs. It means you have more than one owner. Why? Because all of the case law from LLCs were created in 1977. They're the new kid on the block. But limited partnerships have been around since 1916. Okay, all six of you at this table, you decide we're going to join a partnership. Okay? And you all put in your $1 million and we're going to invest in real estate. Patrick over here gets in trouble. He gets sued. I don't know if he did something wrong where he's accused of doing something wrong, but okay. Would it be fair if I'm the plaintiff, if I come in and take all $6 million out of your partnership? Why? Because there's 5 innocent people that didn't do anything wrong, right? So it wouldn't be fair. So the courts don't allow that. Well, what if I won't take the assets, I'll just take all the income. I get to take all the rents and the dividends and would that be okay? No, because there's 5 innocent parties that didn't do anything wrong. What if I just foreclose on Patrick's interest? So in other words, I become your substitute partner. Ooh, and a lot of states will allow for a foreclosure. Oklahoma doesn't. That's good. Wyoming, Nevada, there's a few states that won't allow for a foreclosure. So what's the plaintiff going to do to become satisfied? So then I put a charging order or a lien against your interest in the partnership. If there's a distribution, my hand is on top of Patrick. I get paid, not him. Okay? Now, does that affect you guys? No. Okay. It just affects Patrick and I, right? Good. That's the way the law is created. And that law on limited partnerships also then applies to LLCs. But now we come up with a new dilemma. What happens if it's not a multi-member LLC, it's just a single member? Patrick is the only owner. So in 2003, there was the very first time this was litigated. It was the Albright case. It's a bankruptcy case out of Denver, Colorado. Mr. Albright, before his company goes defunct, has set aside $2 million in a separate single-member LLC. He's standing before the judge and going, neener, neener, neener. You can't take the assets out. The only thing you do is put a charging order or a lien against my partnership and wait for my LLC and wait to get paid. And the judge looks at him and goes, Mr. Albright, there's no innocent parties. It's just you. Charging order does not apply to single-member LLCs, only to multi-member LLCs. Then there's 3 other cases, but the big case was in Florida. That was called the Olmstead case. That was in 2010. Mr. Olmstead ticked off the Federal Trade Commission because it swindled lots of people millions of dollars. He's got $10 million set aside in a single-member LLC, and he's given the same argument Albright did, going, you can't touch it. And the judges, the panel of judges in Florida goes, Mr. Olmstead, there is no charging order for single-member LLCs. Now, as a result of that case, Wyoming legislature met just a couple weeks later. Wyoming is where LLCs were created in the first place. They met and they went, you know what? We'll give you charging order protection for single-member LLCs in our state. We just want a $50 filing fee for every LLC you set up. And so lots of business started going. Now, since Wyoming protects single-member LLCs, Nevada has followed, Alaska followed, Delaware followed, let's see, South Dakota has followed, Texas has followed, Ohio followed, and finally, Oklahoma followed. Single-member LLCs are good here. So when I say that single-member LLCs don't provide charging order protection, well, that's probably true in 42 states. But it can be true. But here's what but would you be better, Patrick, if you did have another partner, even if it's a spouse, be a partner? And that takes away the alter ego fear of that this is really just you. And then if you did commingle funds just a little bit and you didn't have your annual meeting, okay, we'll overlook that. But now there's innocent parties. So anytime we add strength, we add partners to a partnership or to an LLC, asset protection is like a stool. A one-legged stool works, it's a little wobbly, but once we add 3 legs or more, then it becomes stable and almost impenetrable to a plaintiff. Okay. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, so charging order protection. The best entities would be multi-member LLCs and family limited partnerships. Let's talk about legal structures. Okay, here's how we would set up most people that are doing real estate. Let's say you've got 3 properties and you've got substantial equity in each one. What we might do is we might set up a corporation or an LLC taxed as a corporation to manage. That's where you're going to get all the tax perks. This is where you can write off your medical expenses, and this is where you can write off your home office deduction and your cell phones and anything related to this is your mileage, anything that you can deduct, we're deducting out of the corporation. And it's a management fee. That's how we fund it. But who owns the stock of your corporation? Not in your name. We would assign it to your revocable living trust so that when you die, there's clear title to it. Let me give you a really good reason why. A few years ago, I sat down with a lady. Her husband just passed away. She's a 38-year-old widow with 4 little kids living down in Texas. They owned a water drilling company. They come in and drill a water well on your land and you have fresh water. Okay, that's cool. And then the company is worth about $4 million. He dies in a rodeo accident. The bull won. Sorry. leaving her as a widow. Oh, wait a minute. They didn't own a water drilling company. He owned a water drilling company. It was a single member LLC. Now that ownership of the LLC is going to go through Texas probate. It's going to be in there for at least 9 months. Is that company going to be worth $4 million after 9 months of probate? You tell me. I don't think so. Probate is the process of figuring out who gets your stuff if you don't have a better plan for it. And if there's clear title, so we took the ownership interest of that management company and we assigned it. He's the member all the days of his life, but in the operating agreement, we says, Russ is the member all the days of his life. The second he dies, he wants all his rights and interests to go to somebody, but we don't leave that blank line there, because then we haven't assigned your interest. Therefore, probate has to determine who owns the company now. A lot of you have LLCs, but we haven't assigned a beneficial owner if you pass away. And that's where our trust comes in, or that's where, I don't know, assign it to your wife or assign it to the kids or assign it to somewhere. But don't leave it out in limbo, because then it will go through probate. And it's one of the biggest mistakes that I see real estate investors make. Yes, I own all my properties, it's all in LLCs, but who owns it when you die? I don't know. We make that assignment. See that little line that goes from the management company down to the trust? Then we take the properties and we separate each one of them. In this case, I used a multi-member LLC. Each one has its own bank account. Each one, the property is titled in the name of the single member LLC. It's located where the properties are located, so that I have standing in that state. If all your properties are in Texas, then those are Texas LLCs. And what do we do with your ownership? Do you own the LLC? Yes. But the second you die, all your rights get assigned to somebody. And in this case, I'm going to show you the trust is the assignment. Now that, my dears, is how we do asset protection. Our tax perks going to come out of where? The corporation. That's my active business. If I take the salary, I pay self-employment taxes. But we're going to send most of the money down to we keep it into real estate. And I'm going to write that off with depreciation, cost acceleration, bonus depreciation, all that kind of stuff. I'm going to offset, I made too much money here, but I lost money over here on paper, and I'm going to play that game. But everything ties into our trust so that it avoids probate. Is this, here, you know what? We're going to do a photo op, okay? Because this is, no, I'm not kidding. I'm kidding. This is like the core of what we need to teach you. This is how it all ties together. Now, some of you, that might be a C Corp or an S Corp, it might be an LLC, it might be a corporate, I don't know, whatever. These might be single member LLCs, those might be multi, I don't care. That's the basics. Now, the problem with this is that it requires 5 tax returns. Your individual 1040, one for the corporation, and 1165 for each one of the partnerships. What if we can simplify that for you? With a diagram that looks like this. Now what we're doing is we're using single member LLCs. There's only one owner, disregarded for tax purposes. So the property is titled in the single member LLC. All tax consequence flow down through to this hub in the middle. This big holding company. Therefore, there's a tax return for the corporation. There's a tax return for the multi-member LLC. The trust doesn't have a tax return because it's a disregarded entity until you die. So there's no tax return for that. Now I have an individual 1040, which, sorry, you can't get out of. One for the corporation, one for the holding company. And what I've done is I've separated each property or each group of properties from each other. So I've contained the risk. For some of you that have hundreds of properties, you might have 5 or 10 properties. If you're just getting started, I might a separate LLC for every property, because if I lose one, that's a big part of my overall net worth, right? So we separate these out. If that single member LLC, number 2, happens to be in Louisiana, that's where the property is, the single member LLC is filed in Louisiana, but it's owned by your holding company. Louisiana has taxes. They have courts. If something happens, if there's a lawsuit, you need standing in that court. You can evict tenants, you can forge contracts. You do all of it. You defend yourself in court. So you have standing in the state, but it's owned by your holding company. Now, let's test it. Who owns the calculator and the computer that runs your business? The corporation. Who owns the real estate? The single member LLC. Who owns the single member LLC? The holding company. Who owns the holding company when you die? The trust. Who owns the corporation when you die? The trust. So you're going to take all your tax perks where? No, not the trust. You're going to take most of your tax perks. You're going to, okay, let me be more specific. Where are you going to write off your mileage? Out of the corporation. Where are you going to deduct your cell phone? Out of the corporation. Where are you going to claim depreciation deductions? Out of that holding company. Who owns it all when you die? The trust. Are you getting this? Is this cool or is this cool? Are you learning something that your accountants and attorneys have never taught you your whole life? Our company is pretty good at teaching. You go ahead, question.
Does it matter as far as the management company and the holding company who pays the taxes, pays, I guess, all that stuff, and the management collects the rents? Does all that matter?
You know, accounting is going to be different. For some of you, you're going to collect the rent out of a management company, okay, and then it's going to send money down to the single member LLCs. Some of you might say, you know what, this management company doesn't manage any properties. It just manages LLCs. Therefore, I'm going to collect it. So the accounting could be very different. Each individual LLC collects its own rent, and each one pays its own bills, and then sends up the little management fee up to the management company. There's 2 lines of thinking on accounting, so the answer is it depends. So what we're doing, I don't want you, at this level, I don't want you to get too concerned about, well, is this an S Corp or C Corp? We're giving you the 10,000 foot view. And some of you, yes, it might be an LLC. Tax is an S Corp, but big picture. Corporations manage, holding companies own. We separate assets by division by single member LLCs because they can separate. They have corporate veil protection so they contain risk, but holding companies hold assets, and usually that holding company, we want that to be the biggest, baddest state that's affordable. That's why we really like Wyoming, Nevada, Delaware for these holding companies. Okay, but we'll get into that, okay? Let's talk about legal, oh, yes, question. Okay, so what she's saying is the holding company also owns a piece of or all of the management company? All of it. I would think it's not ideal, but it's not, because here's what she's saying. Is she's taking her management company and putting that as a single member LLC inside of the holding company. Now what you've done is you've introduced risk into that otherwise safe bubble. Okay, this single member LLC over here on the side, does this own a safe asset, one that can never be sued, never do anything wrong, or does it own a dangerous asset? Dangerous asset. Somebody could slip and fall, there could be a lawsuit. That's a dangerous asset. Your management company, is that safe or dangerous? Safe. Well, no, the management company assumes all the risk. It's out, it's finding tenants, it's flipping properties, I don't know whatever it's doing, but it's out there fully exposed. But this holding company, it has a bank account, it owns interest in single member LLCs. Does this own safe assets or dangerous assets? Safe. And when you bring in the management company into that, I believe that you're bringing in risk that you don't need to bring in. That's my opinion. And maybe the attorneys have set it up, or I have a different opinion. Again, we're playing chess. Not every strategy is going to win every game. And I don't know that much about what you're doing anyway. So does that make sense? I wouldn't do it that way. Okay. Let's go to structure number 3. Now, what I'm doing is I'm separating completely my safe assets. Now I take my brokerage account and my savings account, and I take the artwork, because that's not really a personal property, that's an investment. My wife's red wedding ring, I don't tell her that it was an investment, but it could be an investment, it could be, I don't know, whatever. I take those things and I put safe assets in a separate legal entity. And even though holding company number 2 is really safe assets, I don't want any risk involved with number 1. And now what I do is I keep all of my cash. Now, would I do this for a $5,000 brokerage account? No. Would I do it for less than maybe $100,000? I don't know. That's up to you. Asset protection is very relative. And I want you to hear me on this. Asset protection, there are no hard, fast rules. I've had hundreds of people come to me and say, I've got this legal structure, and my accountant told me I'm just overkill. I don't need all that. I've got 3 LLCs and a corporation and a trust, and my accountant told me I'm wasting my time to carry more insurance. And I go, well, you know what? I probably wouldn't have set up that many LLCs if I had been you. But asset protection is relative to you being able to sleep at night, not me. If you really need the alligator mode, set up the alligator mode. I don't care. But I mean, don't overkill, but asset protection is somewhat relative, as long as you understand the risks. But I wouldn't put lots of properties in one LLC, not realizing that one property could bring down the whole batch. Once you understand the game, then you can make good decisions. Would you agree? Okay. Did that answer your question? Okay. Sorry it didn't come out the way you wanted, but okay. Okay, so this is a different structure. It's a strategy. Whoops. Okay, now we go to basic structure number 4. Now I'm bringing in that IRA money. Ooh. IRAs, your management company cannot manage your IRA properties. That would be self-dealing. That would be prohibited. Can't do that. An IRA is a trust. We don't call it a trust, but an IRA, a 401k, pension plan, those are trusts. They're beneficiaries, they fall under trust rules, okay? IRAs in a lot of states are not well protected. Oklahoma has good laws to protect your IRAs from outside lawsuits. Now, could something happen inside? If I owned 4 properties inside of my IRA, could one of them blow up and blow up the whole IRA? Yes. So sometimes I might use single member LLCs inside of the IRA. The IRA is the member, to separate each property or groups of properties from each other. Same principle we learned with LLCs, now we're using IRAs, and we're using tax-free environments. Does that make sense? Now, the trust, because the IRA is a trust, it does not have to feed into your revocable living trust, because it has beneficiaries of its own. It could, but it doesn't have to. For my IRA, I set it up. My IRA, I'm the beneficiary. It was set up for my retirement account. My wife is the contingent beneficiary, and my trust is set up as the second contingent. So everything dumps into the trust, and then the kids receive whatever, and we'll talk about estate plan, and we'll talk about that strategy in a minute. Well, this afternoon. But my point here with this case study is that your management company cannot manage your IRA properties. And the IRA does not necessarily have to feed into the trust. It is a trust all by itself. But the principles of separating the assets from each other still applies. Got that? Okay. Case study number 5. Let's do a management company that owns rental properties. And I don't care how many rental properties you have, same principle applies. Management company, and now I've got a holding company and I've separated the assets from each other. Everything flows down to my trust. But I'm also flipping, and I don't want to be a dealer in real estate. So what I can do is I set up a flipping company that owns, now that normally is going to be a C or an S corporation, or an LLC taxed as such. And I set up a single member LLC owned not by my holding company, but owned by the corporation. Now I'm flipping a second property. I set up a separate single member LLC to flip this one. LLC number 1 is all done. It's beautiful. I've fixed it up. I sell it. And as soon as the money is in the account, I dissolve that little sucker and the liability goes away. I set up another one. Great. I do a 4th one. As soon as they're done, I close those little suckers down. Once, nobody can sue a defunct LLC. I mean, there's no point to it. It's dead. There's no assets in it. But what I'm seeing a lot of you do is you're flipping all out of one company, and you're bringing and all the past liability into what you're currently doing, and you're carrying a lot of cash in there. Well, it's easier, of course it is, but it's also dangerous. Now, this is how we do big developments, big multi-million-dollar developments, always done this way. For little guys, it becomes sometimes impractical if you're buying houses at foreclosure for $20,000 or $30,000, flipping it. And so sometimes what I see is flippers take 2 or 3 properties, and then when those are done, then I close that down. Or I take all the flips that I did in 2022, and then I close that down. And all the properties in 2023, and then I close that. But I limit my liability by having single member LLCs owned by the corporation. This is active. Now are you over here, I don't have a, over in holding company, number 1 that holds your properties. Are you a dealer in real estate? No, the other LLC is. You're not the dealer. Therefore, dealer status doesn't apply to you. It applies to that. That's the flipper. Not, and so I'm using legal entities to separate what you're doing. Now, I hope what I'm teaching will make sense to what you're doing. Does this make sense? Flipping is different than holding, and the liability and the tax repercussions are very different. Okay. All right, that's legal structures 1 through 5. Now, let's talk about taxation. Because all we've talked about is, we've talked about legal structures. Now let's talk about taxation. Because a lot of you have questions about this. Let's take your holding company. You have a choice if it's a single member LLC to treat it as a disregarded entity. There's some advantages to that. It's easy. Disregarded means I don't have to file any tax returns. Everything flows through my 1040 Schedule E. That's good. It's easy. Cool. All taxable events go to the owner of the LLC. That might be an IRA. That might be me. Okay? It's suitable for single owner investors. What if I take it? What are the disadvantages to that? Well, it's not suitable if I'm married and I want to share in those assets with my wife, and my wife wants to share the assets that I'm doing here. I wouldn't be allowed, after 44 years of marriage, I would not be allowed to have all my real estate in a single member LLC without including her. That, this asset's more important than the other assets, okay? No asset protection in it's now 42 states. Welcome, Oklahoma. Financing lenders, sometimes will adjust. Sometimes it'll be harder to get financing if you're taxed as a disregarded entity. It just is. And the reason why, and if it's a disregarded entity, all of your real estate is going to flow through to your 1040 Schedule E, page 1, which is subject to 75% of loan to value. What that means is that a lending institution is going to look at all of your tax or all of your real estate, everything that's happening, and go, but you're going to have some evictions, you're going to have some vacancies. So we're going to take all your loan to value and discount by 25% and not give you full credit. Even though you got money, you're making money, but we're not going to count it as that. Therefore, it's going to be harder to get a loan. If we tax this as a partnership, we don't have that problem. So partnership, you could take the holding company, tax it as a partnership. Now, even if you're a single owner, you could elect to tax it as a partnership. Okay? So the advantages to that is you got stronger asset protection. Remember we talked about multi-member LLCs are stronger. It's appropriate for multiple investors. Lenders give 100% loan to value. So it might be easier for you to get financing. The disadvantage is I've got to file a tax return. I've got to file that 1165 and issue K1s. Cool? There's your little camera if you want to take a picture of that. This is your holding company. Now that's different than your management company, isn't it? Some of your holding company, you want to, if you're a single person and you want to hold the assets separate, or I'm married but I want to keep assets separate, single member LLCs are easy. Okay. Come on, clicky-ding, click, there we go. Now we're talking management company. And now we have an option. We would never ever treat your management company as a disregarded entity. We would never treat it as a partnership. We would always treat it as an S or a C corporation. I'm going to give you the advantages and disadvantages of both. And so you can decide. Most of the time your accountant is going to say, oh, let's be an S corp. That's how we always do it. And I'll tell you that a lot of your accountants are missing the boat and they're giving you bad advice. So here's the advantages of a S corporation. What I can do in an S corporation management company is I can split the income, and some of it I'm gonna make active, which is subject to 15.3% self-employment taxes. And some of it I can take as a dividend, which is passive. And although that sounds attractive, the goal in a management company is to not make a profit. I don't want to make money in the management company. I want to make money in the real estate where I can write it off with passive losses and depreciation and other things. My goal is, even though that your accountants are saying, we want this tax as an S corp so you can save on self-employment taxes, I'll tell you that's not in reality how you're going to try to run this. We're going to leave most of the money in the real estate because you're developing real estate. Unless I'm going to send enough money up to the management company to deduct my medical expenses and my cell phone and my travel and my mentoring, whatever I need. But the goal is not to make money in the corporation. The goal is to make money in the real estate. Okay? So even though that's an advantage, it's really not. It's not subject to accumulated earnings, which is dumb because you're not going to try to accumulate earnings in a management company, but it might be eligible for QBI, which is the 20% haircut. But again, our goal is not to make money in the management company. Losses flow through to the owner, but our goal is not to have a loss. Our goal is to break even. It avoids double taxation on the $5 that you left in there. Okay. I'm saying may not be a good advantage to having this taxed as an S corp. But here are the disadvantages. There are some deductions that you can't take. You can't take 100% medical out of an S corp. That's only for C corporation. Education expenses, you can take higher education expenses. I know, research and development, all that. You can take bigger deductions out of the C corp than you can the S corp. Shareholders are taxed at undistributed profits. If you're building a business, let's say I'm building a manufacturing business, and I want to sell it someday, and I want to leave money in the corporation. Okay, chiropractor. You want to save a little money in the business right now because I want to buy a new piece of equipment. I need more money in there. What is an S corporation? You're going to pay taxes on that money, whether you distribute it or not. A C corporation, I could keep the money in, only pay 21%, which might be lower than your individual tax bracket. I don't know if that makes any sense. Limited to 100% shares. I'm limited to 100 shareholders. Doesn't apply to anybody in this room. All shareholders of an S corp have to be U.S. citizens. If some of you have a spouse who's not a U.S. citizen, or you want to bring in family members that live in Vietnam, I don't know, whatever, you cannot do that out of an S corp. Out of a C corp, you could. Okay? Those are your advantages and disadvantages. Camera off time, there you go. Ready, set, let's go. Okay. Click, 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 there we go. Now let's look at, here's what I consider your advantages of a C corp. I really like C corps for a management company. I do. And here's why. It's not subject to a hobby loss rule. If sole proprietorships, if you're not making money in S corporations, if you're not making money every year, the IRS is going to come back and say, here, this is just a hobby for you. My wife's business. She's run her little business now for almost 20 years. She's a massage therapist. And she also does a lot of energy work, and she trains a lot of energy workers. And I don't know if that makes sense to anybody. I call it her voodoo, but she's really, really good at it. And she has a place down on Main Street in our town where she's got her little healing center, and she's very good at what she does, and she hires people, but she's never made money. Because she goes to Hawaii and, but does business trip, I don't know, whatever she does, and she buys a new piece of equipment, and, oh, this is really cool, and bells and whistles, and she's never made money. Could the IRS come back and say, this is really just a hobby, count all of the income and deny all the deductions? Yes, they can do that in a sole proprietorship, in an S corp. They can't do that in a C corp. Why? Can you imagine the IRS coming to Delta Airlines and going, it's been 24 years since you made a profit. This is really just a hobby for you guys. No, C corps don't have that rule. Amazon, they put right in their financial statements, our goal is not to make a profit. I hope your stock goes up, good for you, but we're not gonna suck out all the money and benefits, and we're not gonna make a profit this year. C corps can do that, S corps can't. So I like that because again, my goal in a management company is not to make money. If I'm flipping properties, that's different. Okay. Fiscal year planning, which means I can offset the calendar year. What I do in my corporation is it doesn't end December 31st. Mine ends January 31st. So it's offset by 1 month. What I do, and by the way, my corporation last year took in $3.5 million. And there was no double taxation because I wiped it out at the end of the year. There was $21, okay, there was double taxation on $21, but it didn't make a profit. Darn it, hate it when that happened. Oh yeah, well, I took out a lot of benefits. Okay, but what I can do is I can look at the year and go, okay, I've got $250,000 in there December 31st. Do I want to take that out personally on December 31st, or do I want to wait till January 1st? It's not going to affect the calendar year of the corporation one way or the other, but it might affect me. If you received your $250,000 on January 1st and didn't have to pay taxes on it for April 15th of the next year, I can do that with a C corp. I can't do that with an S corp because they always end December 31st. It gives you more flexibility. I like that. Medical expenses, I can do that. I can't discriminate, but I can do that. And then there's what's called a 1244 stock loss option. Some of you, if you're putting a lot of money into not real estate, but into another business, I don't know, whatever you're doing. I've got this really good energy bar I want to invest in. Okay, I set up my corporation. I need some manufacturing. I need a lease. I'm putting in, well, let me give you another example, an RAL business. I'm setting up an RAL business. Okay, it's going to take some money. Not just the real estate, but I've got to buy the beds and the TVs and the armchairs and the commercial fridge, and I've got to buy the commercial stove. And it's going to take $100,000 to set this up. Well, I don't know if it's going to fly or not. I hope it flies, but I've never done this before. So what I do is I set up a C corporation with 1244 stock loss option right in the bylaws. And what that does is that allows me to say, it allows me a back door. Someday, if I didn't make money in this business, I could close down the corporation and write it off as though I spent $100,000 with IBM and I didn't make money, so I get to write that off against all my other income. What 1244 stock loss would be really good to have in an REO business, just to give, or business like that, because it gives you a back door in the event you don't make money. Otherwise, the only thing I can do is write off $3,000 a year every year for whatever time the 1202. There are certain businesses, as long as it's not a service business, where I could build a business and sell it and not have to pay capital gains taxes. That's called a 1202. If you're flipping houses, you're not interested in that. If you're doing rentals, but if you're building a business, a chiropractic business, and you want to sell that over years, if I include 1202 stock loss options, oh wait, chiropractic is a service. Sorry, can't do that. Sorry. But a lot of businesses I could do and not pay capital gains tax. Those are some of the benefits of a C Corp. Now, let's get back to disadvantages, possible double taxation. I lose the QBI. Again, our goal is not to make money in that management company. There it is, you take a picture of it, I can go over it if you want, but let's get back to the examples. Okay, ready, set, go. You want to take a picture? Okay, there you go. I go back to the last one. That's this button. That one. Okay. You good? Okay, now I'm going to go back to the 5 examples I showed you before, and now let's talk taxation. And then we'll wind up this section. Okay, I showed you case study number 1, where we were holding 3 different properties. We had a management company. That management company, how should we tax? It's going to be a corporation or an LLC taxed as a corporation. How would you tax that? You only have 2 options. What are the options? Management companies are taxed as C's or S. That's it. Okay? So in your situation, can you throttle the management fees? Can you kind of predict what your expenses for this year? Look at the things you can deduct. If I had a management company, now I can deduct 100% of my medical expenses, but I don't have medical expenses. Maybe I do. Can you predict somewhat your management fees? Okay, if you can do that, I would say a C corporation would be ideal. Because again, our goal of the management company is not to make money. Our goal is to zero it out at the end of the year with $21, and you pay double taxation on $21. Okay, so either one, whether it's a C or an S, it's going to require a tax return. It's either going to be an 1120 or an 1120S. I don't know what. And most of you, you're going to hire an accountant to do it, and it's not going to be a big difference between the two. Okay? If I'm flipping a lot, I would probably tax it as an S corp. If I'm doing big commercial properties, flips, I would tax it as a C. Work with your accountants on this. Now, this holding company, if it's a multi-member LLC, how is it taxed? Multi-member LLCs are taxed how? Come on, we're reviewing here. Well, somebody, come on. There we go. Thank you, Tal. Multi-member LLCs are always taxed as a partnership. There's multiple members, right? We have to, at the end, you get a K1, it's like a 1099. Okay, so that's going to be taxed as a partnership. If that were a single member LLC, that could be a disregarded entity. How is the trust taxed? What tax return does the revocable living trust file? Good answer. Doesn't file a tax return. Okay. Until both the trustors are dead. Okay. Let's go to the next one. Case study number 2. Single member LLCs, how are they taxed? Single member LLCs that own the individual properties, how are they taxed? Disregarded? Is that what you said? There's no taxation. Does that mean that all taxes are free? No, it means all taxes flow through to the owner. Who's the owner of the single member LLCs? The holding company. The holding company, if it's a multi-member LLC, is going to be taxed as a partnership. If it's a single member LLC, it could be taxed as a disregarded entity, or it could be a partnership. So is there any questions on that? How do we tax the corporation? S or C. How do we tax the trust? We don't. Okay. Let's go to number 3. Click, 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 click. Click, click, click. Oh, maybe I have to point it. I don't know. Well, okay. There, oh, there. Okay. Case number 3. Let's go back. Click. There it is. Okay. You got safe assets. I've got a lot of money in my brokerage account. I didn't talk about this, but what I could do, I'm keeping my cash. I've got $1 million in cash sitting over there in the brokerage or whatever, and I have a line of credit over to my other holding company. When I find a good real estate deal, it borrows money from the holding company. Number 1, I move the money over. I don't just transfer it. There has to be a business purpose. I'm not commingling funds. I move the money over. I buy another property, set up another single member LLC. But this protects the safe assets. Okay. The management company, can a management company manage lots of investments or just real estate? Manage lots of things, couldn't it? Not just real estate, it could also manage my brokerage accounts. The management company is going to be taxed as C or an S, and the multi-member LLCs are going to be taxed as partnerships. The single member LLCs are going to be taxed as disregarded entities. You're getting this, aren't you? Okay, it's not that hard, and the trust is not taxed. Okay, let's go to number 4. IRAs. You file a tax return for your IRA or 401k. There actually is one, but your custodian is filing, and you'll never see it. So no tax returns for that. I'm sorry. Okay. And then everything else is the same. Okay? Number 5. There we go. Okay. Management company for the rental property, C or S. Holding company, if it's a multi-member, taxed as a partnership. Single member LLCs, taxed as disregarded entities. Over to the flipping company. The single member LLCs are taxed as disregarded entities. If you're doing large stuff, commercial real estate, you're going to tax the flipping company as a C corp. If you're doing little stuff, I could see the argument for the S corp. Is this a lot of questions last night, and then a lot of questions on our hotline. I hope that helps make sense of it all. Okay. When we come back from lunch, are we ready for lunch now? Okay. Then we'll talk about probate and how all of this ties in. We're going to talk about estate taxes. And then we're going to talk about capital gains taxes, because someday you're going to want to sell the real estate you have. How can we avoid the capital gains taxes? You're going to want to sell your business. How do we avoid the capital gains taxes on the businesses that you own? We talked about all of that. While they're setting up lunch, what kind of questions do you have? Let's just do an open Q&A. Please. Okay. Okay, so let's go back to a diagram. Okay, and what she's asking is, can the living trust be the member of the LLC? Because and then the answer is yes. I could name the trust as the member. There's really two ways to do this. When I'm doing the operating agreement, I list the trust as the member. And you're not the member, the trust is. And so it would say on there, you know, for me, it would say Don Pendleton, common trustee of the Pendleton Family Trust as the member. Getting financing is going to be really tough for that because they're not used to that. What would be more common is you are the member with an assignment of beneficial interest paragraph that says you are the member all the days of your life. The second you die, all your rights and interests go down to the trust. And that way, it keeps it cleaner for outside people. I mean, you don't want a lot of people looking at your documents, but especially lending institutions, if you're doing financing, they don't want to see the trust on there. That confuses them. They don't get it. Then they want to see a whole copy of the trust, and they don't do that. Okay, you could, but don't. Okay. Okay. Oh, okay. But you have, okay. There's two ways there's an assignment of interest or what's called a designation of successor in interest, where I'm designating my successor, but again, it doesn't kick in until you die. But could you do it? Yes, it's very appropriate to do it. And in fact, the last book I wrote, I suggested that you do that, but now I've had this change of heart and I think differently, so, okay. So somebody read my book and then did it wrong, sorry. Okay, what other questions do you have? Yes? All right, okay, I can't hear you, so I'm gonna come closer. No, I'm sorry, just this. No, anything you want.
Okay, so if I have a lot, or if I have multiple full computer bags that I bought years ago, and I don't have receipt for it, can I still go back on that and say it's my computer bags that I need, I'm still using to this day?
Probably not. However, you could amend your tax returns for up to 3 years. Could the corporation buy them from you? I suppose it could. Is that a little self-dealing? Well, what are you gonna charge for it? I don't know. I'm not saying it's impossible, but, corporations, the way they're set up is the minute you set up the corporation, then you get all the tax deductions. So, okay, it's November. Can I set up a C corporation right now, include a medical reimbursement plan, and then deduct everything from January up until now? No. When the corporation is set up, then I get all the tax benefits. Now, you already have a corporation, right? Could you invoice the corporation for the computer bags you purchased in the past? Maybe for a year, but I probably wouldn't go back much more than that. Is that fair? Yeah. Okay. Okay, if you spent $200 on a computer bag and you're gonna expense it out of the business, do they want to see a receipt? Yeah. 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 Okay. Okay, other questions? You guys are just hungry, or I've been really clear. Go ahead. You had a question? No? Okay.
Can you create a C corp, or you have to have several single members?
Okay, say that again.
Okay, if I only have one single Mandel LLC, can I create a C corp just like the real estate?
Yes. Can one individual have a C corp? Yes, yes. Can one person have a partnership? No, but however, let's take this one. Great example right here. Let's say I'm a single person, I set up a corporation. I'm the shareholder, I'm the president, I'm the vice president, I'm the secretary of treasurer, it's all me. Cool. I'm having a board of directors meeting, just me, in the shower, by myself, that's okay. As long as you keep minutes at it, I don't care. Okay, this one, if this is a partnership, let's say we're 90% owner, and we give the corporation 10% for services to be rendered. Now, do you have a partnership? Now I have a partnership. A C corporation is separate than you individually. So now you have two entities involved. Now, it gets a little schizophrenic, but it works. Okay, so you're in the middle of a lawsuit. I'm the plaintiff's attorney. Belinda, is that, okay. Okay. Did you keep your minutes, meetings, resolutions of that corporation? Yes, sir, I did. Here's all my notes. They're a little wet, but there they are. Yes, I did. Okay, and who's the manager of your LLC? Well, I am. Oh, wait, the corporation is. Well, no, not the corporation, but me as the president of the corporation is the manager of the LLC. Okay, and who owns the other 90% of your LLC? Well, my trust does, but that's disregarded, so really it's just me. Okay, so legally, yes, it does work, but you need, okay, when you're wearing your president hat, you need to wear your president hat. When you're wearing your trustee hat, you just have to be clear and don't screw that up. But yes, it's very, very possible. Single person sets up a corporation, manages as a partnership. Yes, it happens all the time, and we teach that a lot. But keep it clean. So the corporation can file as a C or an S. The holding company would tax as a partnership or disregarded. The trust doesn't get taxed. It's the same principles. It's just we don't have a second party, so you're doing it all yourself. A little schizophrenic, but it works. It works. It's good. Okay, other questions?
I have one.
Please.
Tal brought me, she's on my hand, I don't know. So on this slide right here, I noticed that it doesn't have the lines going down to the trust like the other ones do.
Sorry, it should.
Okay.
They're there. You can't see.
Okay, so it's the management company goes down and the holding LLC and the flipping company?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure.
All of the lines are there. You just don't see them. They're hidden. Okay, let's pretend. We always take your ownership of all business entities and tie them down to a succession plan. And when we get to the summit, I'm going to get a little bit more in detail because sometimes in trust, we don't want everything distributed equally among the children. Sometimes we do. But sometimes as kids grow up, they have different talents and they have different interests. And one wants to be in real estate and one wants to be a physician and one wants to do, and they get married and sometimes those marriages don't go well. And so, this trust is really, you're creating a succession plan and you're gifting to the kids when you die assets that are going to benefit them, not things that are going to take away. You don't, my third daughter lives in San Francisco. I would not ever give her $1 million. I'd be gone the next day. My two sons and my second daughter, I could give them money and they would handle it and manage it very well. So you create in this trust and in the succession plan assets that are going to benefit the kids. And when they're little, you go equally among the kids because I don't know what they're going to do. But now, divorces and second divorces and life gets complicated. So I hope that makes sense. Let's go eat lunch and, oh, one more question. Good. Yes, and in fact, if your real estate management company showed us a loss, and let's say you had an S corp, and you showed a $20,000 loss, could you write off that loss against real estate income? Oh, yeah, oh, baby, yes. Yes. So, yes, but if it's taxed as an S corp, you're subject to hobby loss rules. You can't lose money every single year. If it's in a C corp and you have a loss, that loss will roll forward in the C corp. So, yes, sometimes it is an advantage to lose money on paper. Okay, good. Let's go lunch, let's eat, and we'll come back. And are you having fun? Are you
Let's
learning
take a
anything?
longer one, it's until 1 o'clock. Can I make 1 o'clock? I think it's ready.
Okay.